So now on to our review, Forward by Abby Wambach. And here to review is Democrat and Chronicle sports reporter Jeff DeVeronica. Jeff has been covering sports in Rochester since 1994. He's a native of Canastota, near Syracuse, graduated from St. John Fisher College, where he was inducted into the Communication Journalism Hall of Fame in 2003. He started covering Abby Wambach for the Democrat and Chronicle when she was in high school at Our Lady of Mercy, and continued to write about the soccer star's career up until her retirement in December 2016. Jeff and his wife Chrissy live in Webster with their daughter Francesca and dog Ernie. So please join me in welcoming Jeff DeVeronica today.
Thank you. Okay, let's see if this is working. See, I'm Italian and I'm loud, so I probably don't even need the microphone. Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite here to do this. It's been interesting. The first 20 years covering Abby Wambach's life was pretty easy, right? She's triumphant. She's terrific. Everyone loves her. She's this budding soccer star, and the last year has been kind of difficult, actually. And for me, some people actually got some hate mail on social media after I wrote about her book, and what she wrote is public, and all I did was put some excerpts in the newspaper, and some people posted some nasty stuff about me saying how you wrote her coattails for 20 years and how could you write this about her now? And I said, I didn't write anything. She wrote it in her book. All I did was tell you what's in the book. She's the one that is telling you and admitting that she was washing down pills with vodka, and I didn't do that. So it was, and even I heard some of her family members were upset that I chose to put that in the local newspaper. Well, People Magazine was writing about it. She was on the Today Show. It wasn't like this wasn't like this was going away, and she wanted it out there. So what was interesting is she really took this thing head on, and I admire her for that, because she could have sold a lot of books, even if she just wrote about how great her life had been, and her career had been, and her family. But I'm here, I want to tell you first about the book, and then I want this to be really open, and throw your hand up and we'll talk about her life and what she's meant to Rochester, and to a degree, some of it, not all of it, but I know she's been candid about this. She felt like a phony over the last several years of her life and career, because she was drinking too much. She was taking pills not only to combat physical pain but emotional pain. And we live in a world where celebrities have to kind of keep their image polished, right, to get all the endorsements. She just laid it all out here in this book. The reason this is the only book in my life I ever read in one sitting is because I just couldn't put it down. And I know you've all read books like that, right? And to a degree, it was just like a diary. Like somebody said, and I was fascinated by the process with which this must have been written, because she had to sit, I know she didn't write it, put her hands to the keyboard, but she had to do a lot of interviews with the ghostwriter, and it's sad to me that the ghostwriter doesn't even get their name in the book. But she had to do some really heart-to-heart talks with this ghostwriter, and I thought the ghostwriter nailed it. I'm not supposed to read a lot of passages here that are really long, but there was brutal honesty in this book. And a lot of it comes from not only, I thought, a terrific author who went inside these moments in Abby's head and really kind of brought them out. And I'm sure Abby had the final say, right? Well, let's clean it up, and it's not exactly how I felt. But this starts from her childhood and being someone different who could score a lot of goals. And there's things I found out in this book I had never known. Her dad was paying her money to score goals in high school. I think it was $5 a goal. She ended up with like 142 goals in high school. So that Jeep she was driving around with in high school, there's some pictures they have in the book of her. She helped pay for that, I'm sure. But there was this human side of her. She has a mom and a dad and brothers and sisters, and she felt she had to live up to what her brothers and sisters were doing. She was the youngest of 7, right? And a tough Catholic family. So it's amazing when you think about it. Here's this young girl who became a role model, raised as a Catholic young girl, and now she's telling everyone she's a lesbian. And I never knew when Abby told her mother that. Throughout covering her career, somebody had emailed me and said, why don't you ask Abby about being a lesbian? And I said, this was when it was pretty clear that Abby was a lesbian. And I said, why would I do that? I don't see her hiding it. I also have never asked one male athlete I've ever covered if they're heterosexual. So I thought that was demeaning to her and not something, again, there are websites out there that want to write about that stuff. That's not why I got in this business, was to write about salacious, sensationalized stuff like that. Hi, Linda. How are you? There's some people in the audience I know, which is cool. So, former coach at Eastridge High School, I think the winningest field hockey coach in Section 5 history, and one of the winningest soccer coaches. That's Linda Adams. That's Scotty Martin from North Rose Wolcott. So thanks for coming here. So I want to at least, if you haven't read the book, and I'm not here to tell you to buy it, I'm just telling you that it's a really good read. And there's a lot I learned. And I'll go through some of that stuff. But before I do that, I want to at least show you, it's ironic that the ESPN video that they did on Abby a few years ago was called Head On. And she really addressed this head on, this whole situation. And I'm going to play you a couple things. This was when she came to Rochester after the book was out. I want you to hear in her words what it was.
Friday
Right?
night
She
to
had the
get Abby
DUI.
Wambach to sign a copy of her new memoir, Forward. The stop in her hometown happened at the end of the first week of a book tour that will take the former soccer star from Pittsburgh through 9 different states.
I'm here because Rochester has been such a valuable part of my career that I guess there's no better way to come and celebrate with the people that helped me grow up, helped me learn about myself, and hey, you know what? They've always been there for me. And in fact, sometimes I fall down, but look, I'm up, I'm good, I'm happy.
I'm really proud of Abby for the way she's handling all of this. I really think she needed this to cleanse and to heal, and I think she did a great job with the book, and I think there's better things ahead now.
So I definitely look up to her more now. She was able to take ownership of her actions and not just let it slide by. She really spoke about it, and I think it's great that she talked about it in her book to really show her fans this is what it was like and not hide that from all of us.
And she's learned from her mistakes, and she's moving on and will continue to do good things.
I like Abby Wambach because she's a good inspiration to kids, and she was a good teammate, and that would put her at higher standards. And
What kind of player was she?
she was tough.
And I really thought, the conversations that had to happen between parents with their kids was interesting. They had to teach their kids about the mistakes that this role model had made. And I think that's important because even Abby said how people put her on a pedestal. And she never asked to be on that pedestal, but she knows it's part of the deal. And she always wanted to be a role model, yet she had essentially, this was a secret life. I mean, I'm not talking about sexuality here. I'm talking about drinking too much. I mean, this was, again, some of the real language she used. It really struck me as she said, I wouldn't go in just to the liquor store and buy a bottle of vodka. I'd buy the vodka you could grab with a handle. That was the bottle I bought and brought home. And I would drink a half a bottle to kind of go to sleep. And her agent said something to her. I don't want to skip too far ahead because everyone wants to hear about the drama of what happened to her, the DUI, which she said was really what changed everything. This was going to be a book about how great she is. And I'm sure there was a lot of conversations with her agent and her endorsers. Should you really be doing this? What endorsement deals are you going to lose? And she, to a degree, said, I don't care. I need to do this for me. I was talking to Rebecca earlier, and I really believe Abby was going to write this phony book. And when she says April 2nd, 2016 changed her life and saved her, it did, because she could no longer lead this secret life. It was out there. Abby Wambach, and we found out later actually that about a year before she had a car accident where her car was flipped and she walked home a mile to her house. And that kind of got swept under the rug. I never knew about that either until this book came out. So she was hiding. And she said that DUI kind of brought her out of hiding. And she could no longer lead this double life. And I believe that she did this to save herself. She didn't do it to sell books. She did it because I think there were too many enablers in her life. Too many people who knew. I knew Abby used to I knew she used to type of drink once in a while. I said in the ESPN documentary, and after it came out of my mouth, I was like, why did I just say that? And they used it. That I said one reason she never made it on the national team when she was a 19 or 20-year-old, she had immense talent, is she wasn't fit. She was drinking in college too much. She details her drinking in this book. It's one of those things where I shudder to think my daughter reading it someday because I don't want her to think that that can ever happen in her life, about how much of a binge drinker she was in college. But she put this out there so no one could enable her anymore. And I give her a lot of credit because a lot of celebrities run and hide. But I think she realized, if I don't put this out there, I'm going to keep... And her marriage, there's amazing detail about her marriage. I mean, who wants this out there? But I think she did this to save herself. Here's one passage. On the last day of March, this is her wife, Sarah. Sarah and I have yet another blowout fight, one that convinces me finally that we are really truly over. We stand in our kitchen in the lovely, loveless house and hurl our words, each one sharper and more brutal than the last. We've created a mess, and it extends beyond the two of us, with all of our friends having to choose sides. Quote, this is happening. The least you can do is go on and apologize to all of our friends for putting them in such an uncomfortable, precarious position. Quote, end quote. With each breath, I regain an inch of control. Quote, now I'm going to own my expletive, bull expletive. I declare, Abby says, I'm drawing up divorce papers. I'll move out. You'll move out. I'll sell my car. You'll sell the other car. We'll get new stuff, get everything out, and start all over again. She details the conversation she had with her mother as a teenager because she came home with a tongue ring, and Mom, Judy Wambach, a saint of a woman, did not like that and said, you're going to have that removed by dinner time. And she screamed at her mother, I wish you were dead. I scream at her, and she spins on her heel and orders me to her office, which is a small bathroom on the main floor. When she closes the door, I expect the look, but instead she is expressionless. All of her features are fixed into place. She speaks with terrifying calmness and clarity. Quote, one day when I am dead, Judy said, you're going to regret saying that. She closes the door, and I imagine her reaction on the other side. Oh, that got her, I picture her whispering, and this time she's inarguably right. I know Judy Wambach didn't want that out there. I know Judy Wambach has had trouble that this is all public. Her daughter's life is public. Her struggles are public. And Abby says in another video I may play, if I don't talk too much, that she did this to help other people, to understand that she's human and she can make mistakes. And I think every kid out there, she wants them to know that, look, I had all this, the glory, the money, the accolades, and I fell down. And I needed the people around me to pick me up. And I think the only way she could do that was to basically say, I'm not going to lie anymore to everyone else. Stop lying for me. I'm putting it all out there. And her agent, this was interesting to me because she played her last match in December 16th of 2015. And I think the very next night she was in Rochester. Got the key to the city. Lovely Warren was there. I was there. I presented her. And she asked me to do that, and I was honored to do it. And I could tell she hadn't slept. They played a match the night before in New Orleans. There are pictures on Facebook and social media of her out partying with her family, her coaches. Kathy Boughton from Mercy High School was there. So I could tell she was really tired. She hadn't slept. And she went to New York City to do some more press, the Today Show and all that stuff. And in the book, she details how before she got on the plane, or before she left, I forget it was the plane or before she left her agent in Rochester. Her agent was in Rochester. And he says to her, because he sees, in a way, her agent knew what was going on behind the scenes. And, I mean, kind of an enabler, right? Nice, great guy, but he knew she was struggling. So he says to her in a way without calling her out. He basically says that her honesty and her being genuine He says, quote, "Are you okay? You need to take care of yourself. You look unhealthy, and I'm worried about you. You have to understand that your greatest quality, Abby, is your willingness to take risks and and say things that others aren't. It's your secret sauce. It's what draws people to you. And if they think it's fueled by alcohol or drugs, and that isn't coming from you, it's all going to go away. Think about that." So he said that to her in Rochester that night. She says she went to New York City and detoxed herself on the floor of my hotel room, sweating my behind off. My skin smells of waxy chemicals. My eyes leak. I can't stop yawning, but I can't sleep. I hate the world. I hate myself. Unbeknownst to me, a few concerned friends have begun to hatch a plan. They call it Operation Get Abby Back. On December 21st, I fly back to Portland, where my brand new Tesla car and another stash of pills are waiting for me. So she knew she was in trouble, but she resumed doing what she was doing, and then she got the DUI. And I remember the next night, she got the DUI on a Saturday night. The next day, and you know, as a sports writer, I mean, I've seen this girl since she was 14 years old, and I know her family. I don't know her that well. In fact, I wrote after all this came out that, well, I knew she liked to have a couple drinks. I never had any idea that she was an alcoholic. And I wrote a column in the newspaper that said, and this is really true of a lot of people, and I know there were people when I got divorced that said to me, "I had no idea you guys are struggling." Because we only show people what we want them to see. And Abby was only showing us a side of her that she wanted us to see. And so I had noticed on social media she hadn't been pictured with her wife in a while. Then to the lead up of her last game, when they won the World Cup, she was there, but not very much at all. So the window into her soul was closing. But I remember the night after, but I don't know the Wambachs. I know them, but I don't like go hang out with them. People think that some people I think do probably think I swept some under the rug. I didn't know she had these kind of problems. Abby will answer my text messages most of the time, but I've always known where the line is, right? When she was in Hawaii for her wedding, my editor said, "Can you text her?" I texted her. She didn't get back to me. They wanted privacy. Okay. I'm not going to call her. I'm not going to bother her too much. I was doing my job, reaching out to her. She didn't get back to me. Okay. But the night after the arrest, she's a retired athlete, and I just said to her, "Hey, be strong. I'm thinking about you." And she wrote back this text message that basically apologized for ever. I knew when I kind of knew that she was really going to recover from this, because she said basically, "I'm humiliated," which she's gone on to say. This is not a secret now that I'm sharing this text message. "I'm humiliated beyond belief, and I'm sorry if I've ever let you down. If I've ever done that, Jeff, I'm sorry." And I showed it to my wife, and I said, "Man, this is going to change her." And obviously it has. So, but I found it very interesting that this athlete, this world-class athlete, decided to basically throw all her skeletons out for everyone to see. And I admire her for it, because a lot of people wouldn't do it that way. And she's gone on. She's found a new mate. They're engaged, and I wish her all the best. But I just found that the way she did this was so genuine, and that's really contradictory how she was leading her life for a while, right? I mean, you guys saw the commercials. "Hey, I'm Abby Wambach, and when I was in high school, I used to have an apple, and I have an apple, New York State apples, and how I lead a healthy lifestyle." And she says in the book, and she says in a video, how she felt like a phony. Here she was trying to advise these children how to lead their lives, and parents trust the words of Abby Wambach to guide their kid, and yet she would go home at night and wash down pills with vodka. So she was leading a secret life, and I'm, in a way, from seeing a girl become a woman and rise to the greatest heights of her profession, which, let's face it, we don't have a lot of those that come out of Rochester, right? And there was a point where somebody asked me when she was just out of college and starting to break in with the national team, I'd started to write the words, "the greatest female soccer player to ever come out of Rochester." This is before she really became super popular. And somebody pulled me aside once at a ball game and said, "Why do you keep writing that? There were other good girls before her in Rochester. I said, I know that. But all the coaches I talk to tell me they saw all the best, and she's the best. And I've always wondered since then that the person who pulled me aside and kind of questioned me if I was really should be writing it that plainly, if they saw what she did and ever thought back to the conversation we had, said, you know what, DeVeronica was right to believe all those coaches. And these are coaches I trusted. I remember, God rest his soul, Gary Page. He grew up here, was a very successful coach at Aquinas in girls soccer. And I remember him saying to me, he ended up passing away, I think shortly after the World Cup in 2011 when she scored that goal against Brazil. But I remember him saying to me, and I went back and used it when she was in high school, that something, I think it was, everyone's going to know her name someday. She's going to make us all proud. And after he died, I wrote an obituary, a tribute to Gary, and I said he saw something in Wambach that we all thought we saw, that he knew there was something special in her. And he said that, you know, she's going to make us all proud someday. And despite what's happened in the last year of her life, because it's been like it's been 12 months and a few weeks since April 2nd. I'm probably more proud of her now, just as somebody that saw her grow up, than if she kept this hiding going on. So it's a really good book. I remember telling my sister that I'm a little cautious. There's a children's version of this, but to a degree, I almost said to my sister, I want you to, here's the book, you can read it, then you tell me if you want your 16-year-old daughter, my niece, my godchild, to read this. And I'm aware of the realities of our world, right? I know that these kids know the language already, but because I'm cautious about what gets shared, and I was cautious doing this if there were going to be kids in the room, because she tells you in this book the night she had sex with a boy for the first time. She tells you the night that she was at the Macaroni Grill in Henrietta, and there was a waitress there, and the waitress asked her this. Somehow the waitress knew that she was from Mercy High School. I don't know if she had a jacket on or what. And she says to Abby, unbeknownst to who Abby was, do you know the girl that scores all the goals that's on the TV and in the newspaper? And Abby says, yeah, that's me. And Abby details in the book going home that, and then apparently the waitress brushed her arm. I don't know if it was by intentionally or not. But Abby remembers she says, I remember going home that night and pacing in my bedroom. Because the way I felt when she grazed my arm was not the way I felt when I was with my boyfriend in high school, who was a McQuaid kid. She's like, that was the night I knew that my sexuality was different than my whole family. And this was going to be a struggle, and she had to hide that. And she hid it till she was 21. And she said, she details in the book the conversation she had with Mom about being a lesbian. And again, I just thought it was terrific that she just laid it out there. She was 21. Sorry, yeah. Scotty. Scotty says it, and he's right. The book is emblematic of the courage she is, if you didn't hear it, that she has shown while playing the game of soccer. Well, you know, if it wasn't, it's ironic that the book, the title of the book, she said, was going to be Forward, her position, before all the bad stuff happened. And she said I wanted to keep the title because she knew that her life now needed to go forward and not live in her past, which was bad. It could have been titled Fearless, because she, and again, the ESPN documentary is terrific because they say that you know, she never feared for her body on the field. And there's a scene in that documentary, and you can find it on YouTube if you search for SEC Storied, Abby Wambach Head On, where Abby has a cut on her head during a match for the United States, and they need her on the field. So the trainer comes out, and I didn't know there was a device that existed like this, and they're stapling the cut. You can see the blood gushing off her head and her hair, and they staple the cut shut right on the field, and you see her gritting her teeth and wincing, and then they wrap it up, and she goes and keeps playing. And her coach at the University of Florida, Becky Burton, I forget her name, Becky Burley. In the video, she talks about how she said, our football coaches showed that to their football team to say, we need the toughness like that out of you boys, you young men on the football team. They showed the woman doing that, which I thought was really terrific. And again, she broke a lot of those stereotypes in that regard. She was one of the first women, Michelle Akers before her, that was a physical presence on the field, and allowed a lot of other girls and women that were big and strong to say, there's a role for me in soccer. So, anyone has any other thing you want to share? Go ahead, sir. Gentleman was saying for our Facebook Live audience and everyone here about Mickey Mantle and how Mickey Mantle had a drinking problem with the Yankees. I didn't live in that era, obviously, but was that ever written while he was playing, or did it all come out after he retired? And, that was an era, too, where sports writers and athletes then, they would go to the bar together. And I guarantee Mickey bought a lot of rounds for a lot of sports writers back in the day. It's not like that now. And I don't like what's become to a degree in our world of, the cell phone and I gotcha. What did they write about Derek Jeter? Derek Jeter, the former Yankee, whenever there was a party at his house, everyone that came through the door, cell phone went into the bucket, and you didn't have your cell phone roaming the party. Because we live in this world of I gotcha. And the only time there was ever an I gotcha, I remember until Abby got herself, was after the World Cup in 2011. She was at home in California, and on there you could tell near a beach, and her and some friends go in to get a piece of pizza, and TMZ comes up with this camera and puts it in her face and says, "Hey, Abby," and you could tell she'd had a couple drinks. She was smiling and happy, and they made a point of pointing out that they thought she had been drinking. That was the only time that ever really became a public issue, and we didn't write about that at the DNC.
The only time it came out was Mickey Mantle was at the tail end of the last year of his career, that book Jim Bouton by Ball 4.
Right.
And that was like, oh my God, these guys drink.
And
Whatever.
And this gentleman said, obviously, he's glad that we live in a society now where an athlete can out themselves that I have problems and I need help and I need a second chance or a third chance or whatever it is. I think that may have all started with Mr. Clinton. Everyone gave him a second chance. Yes, sir. She's still involved in that, yeah. So the question is, and thank you for adding that. What is she doing now? Where is she living now? She lives. Her and her ex-wife now, Sarah, had built a house in Portland. That beautiful, lovely, and then she says in the book, loveless home. And there were pictures on social media of how beautiful it was, and the trophy room, and life-size cutouts of Abby and all that. I believe they've sold that. They had sold her house. Abby had lived in Hermosa Beach, California. I tried selling the bosses on flying me out to do like a cribs story on Abby. Never could pull that one off. But they liked Portland. It's kind of so they built there, and I believe they've sold that. And now I don't know how they met. She met this woman who's a very popular. Her following is almost as big as Abby's. She's a very popular Christian blogger, and again, they were very public about when they announced their. So they live in Florida, I believe, and this Christian blogger, she has children. She was married to a man. They have a couple of, I think, kids in their maybe early teens, and it's interesting to me also that when they announced, Abby and this woman announced that they were a couple, they did it on social media, and it's funny how our world has changed a bit to a degree, especially with the media. I really never wrote much about Sarah Huffman and Abby. To me, that was her personal life. I was covering Abby the athlete, and when Sarah Huffman then came to Rochester and Buffalo and played with the Western New York Flash on the same team as Abby, like she had done with the Washington Spirit, they played there together, and they had played for a team in Florida together. At that point, and then they went and got married her first year in Rochester playing for the Flash. We represented that they were engaged and they were going to be married. But so then a few months ago, probably 6-7 months ago now, Abby and her fiance now put on Instagram a picture of a ring and that they decided to spend their lives together. And actually, let me go back. When they announced that they had found each other and they're a couple, they put that on Instagram. And I remember standing in a morning news meeting with my bosses, and they said, Can you write about that? Can you at least represent it? No, don't call Abby and try to get a comment, but we got to put something out there that she's dating somebody new. And then I said to myself, well, we never really wrote much about Sarah Huffman. Why am I doing this now? Are we going to become the National Enquirer? What is this? And they said, I felt like I didn't want to invade her personal life. But then an editor said very correctly to me, they put this out there themselves on Instagram. We weren't recounting a story or recycling a story that the National Enquirer did or TMZ did or any other publication did. They put this out there publicly because they wanted everybody to know that they were a couple. So go ahead and write something about it. And I said, you know what, you're right. They wanted it out there, so let's write about it. But I still always, again, I'm not a reporter that's going to go try to, I didn't get in this business to tear people down. I think a lot of people now, young kids, might get in this business because they want to have that gotcha moment. And there are times when people need to be put in their place, but it's just interesting how the world has changed from a media perspective. And it's also, to me, I feel bad that people view the media as a bunch of gotcha people, because there's still most of the people I know in this business aren't like that. And I feel worried about the next generation and how they're going to be the stewards of journalism if that's the way they're going to handle it. So, but it's really is a good book. And if you do have young people out there that admire Abby Wambach, I advise to get the younger version, because there's a lot of salty language a lot of language like that in this book. And yes, ma'am. I wouldn't say some. We're talking to a handful of people on social media. What about your connection with Abby herself? That's a good question. It's interesting. We've had a few text messages back and forth. When she came here, Abby's the only athlete I accepted. The first time she hugged me publicly, I was like, that's kind of an awkward moment, right? And I didn't want to say, hey, I wasn't going to stiff arm her. That would be even more awkward. But she's the only athlete I've ever hugged in front, and she did it like in front of a crowd of people at the stadium. She hadn't seen me in a couple of years, probably. I think when she was at the height of her national team, and so we've exchanged a few text messages, but nothing really. She was great to me when she came home for the Barnes and Noble tour. No, she hasn't cut me off. I mean, the day she announced that she was going to retire from the national team, she was in Washington D.C. and it was like a rumor that this was going to happen. And first I called her mom. Hey, is this true? And she's like, you should ask Abby. So I go, well, I don't know if she's going to pick up. She says, she'll pick up. Well, Judy Wambach was in Washington, D.C. with Abby and was like literally listening to me say that to Judy. And then I call and Abby says, hey, Jeff. I go, whoa. And I said, I guess you got some news. She's like, yeah. She was like, I'm standing in the room with my mom. You're just talking to her. And she's like, I'm going to announce my retirement tomorrow morning. And Judy said, she said, you're the only media she's talking to today, Jeff. And I said, I really appreciate that. So when there were times when she said she never forgets where she's from, I think to a degree that's part of what she means. The people obviously helped raise her. I never saw her big time anybody from, like if there's a youth player that she played against or whatever, or a coach, I've never seen her blow somebody off like that. And she never really, were there times she didn't text me back about certain things? Absolutely. But the big stuff, she's always been pretty cool about getting back to me. She knows that to a degree I kind of am the filter, and I'm the way that she's perceived in this town. And when she decided not to play for the Flash, when she was recovering from a knee injury, and she decided to do that rehab in Portland, I said I didn't think that was right. I thought she should be with her team in Western New York. But now, thinking back, and from the book, she was trying to save her marriage. She wanted to be in Portland with her. She couldn't play. She's like, I want to rehab back home. And she was trying to be more present with Sarah and in her life, because they travel a lot, right? She travels a lot apart. And she had said how they started fighting when she started living back home, and they saw each other every day. And she's like, does this mean we're really not meant for each other? That we're seeing each other fight on a day-to-day basis, and we're at each other's throats. Really, she goes in deep into her relationship too. So, We're supposed to stop now.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Great review.